If your review rating is 4.8 or below, you are not showing up on the first page of Airbnb. You're just not. The hosts stuck at 4.6 or 4.7 are usually the most confident they're doing everything right, and that is the problem. These mistakes are invisible from the inside because you're just too close to your property.
In this video, we're going to show you 6 of those mistakes, and if you are even making one of them, it is costing you reviews, ranking, and worst of all, money. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly which ones are dragging your listing down and what to do about each one.
And these are not beginner mistakes. Between our own portfolio and the hosts we coach inside of Strategic Host, we've seen this pattern more times than we can count. Experienced hosts with multiple properties making all 6 of these mistakes. So stay with us.
Mistake number 1, not being honest in your listing.
Ooh.
So be honest with us. Are you being honest? Most hosts leave things out of their listing because they're afraid it'll cost them a booking. Maybe it's steep stairs, it's a creaky older home, street noise, walls that are thin if you're in a shared building. The logic feels obvious. If I mention the noise, the light sleeper won't book. So you leave it out. You don't feel like you're truly not telling the truth.
Yeah, but here's what's happening when you do that. You're not saving the booking. You're trading one booking for the review that kills the next 40 bookings, right? You're trading one booking for that review that will kill so many bookings down the line. A downtown property that says close to all the action is not lying, but the guest reads convenient location and pictures a quiet street. They arrive on a Friday night to bar noise until 2 a.m. They didn't get what they pictured, and the review says exactly that.
See, the host never really lied, but they let the guests fill in their own narrative in the wrong picture, and they paid for it in the review. What you gain in proximity to a vibrant downtown market, you may give up in peacefulness. That's the way you can describe it to your guests. Say that. Say it in the listing. A guest who knows that and books anyways is a guest who will not be surprised. And they're actually looking forward to that vibrancy.
Yeah, and the standard that we hold to our clients is the opposite of what most hosts do, okay? So if you're worried about a detail and that it will deter a guest from booking with you, disclose it anyway. You don't want the guest who's going to be bothered by the con of your property, right? A light sleeper shouldn't be booking your 4th floor unit with thin walls. A family with a newborn shouldn't be booking near a bar district. You'd rather lose that booking than own that review, I promise you. And honestly, I think that when you list a pro, and then a con, pro, and then a con, it actually builds trust. Because if your listing is like the bee's knees and pleases everyone.
And I'm actually going to correct you, Sarah. It isn't a con. Like, I know Sarah and myself, we love street traffic and like trains outside. Like that stuff helps me. It actually puts me to sleep and helps me stay awake or stay asleep, doesn't wake me up. So to me, that's a plus, not a con. So even though some guests, it might deter them, other ones, it will draw them in. So I want you to just know that like what might seem to a con could also potentially be a plus. The right guest, fully informed, books, and they are going to leave you 5 stars. That's the whole game. Match the right person to the right property before they walk through the door. Same rule applies to pre-booking messages. If a guest reaches out with a concern about noise, parking, or the neighborhood, tell them the truth. If it's not a right fit, say so. That conversation is infinitely easier than the bad review. I can share this with you. I hosted a loft property downtown, and I would get messages all the time about people wanting to bring their children. And when I say children, like under the age of 2 years old. And I was so honest with them every single time. This property is not kid-friendly because I have concrete floors, there is no bathtub, and the stairs that I had literally were the stairs with no backing, so a kid could fall through each and every step. I was so transparent. I only ever had one guest book with their kids because they absolutely wanted to be back downtown where like they had met, and they had a great time. But other than that, once I gave that honesty, all of the parents, they chose somewhere else that truly was a better space for them and their children. And I felt so convicted, so good about being fully transparent because I did not want to have a child fall through the stairs or on the concrete floor. So please be honest, and especially when it comes to any safety features.
All right, mistake number 2, misleading photos, and irresponsible AI use. And we've seen the best of the best succumb to this. So guests in 2026 know what AI looks like, okay? 2 years of seeing it everywhere, ads, social media, real estate listings, it has trained them. Calling it out is normalized now, and when a guest lands on your listing and sees a hero image that looks manipulated, skies that are too perfect, a view that seems too open, a scene that looks generated rather than photographed, they're about to bounce, okay? They don't give you the benefit of the doubt.
Or they book anticipating that's what it's going to be. And we want to share this with you. One of our strategic hosts, she was very concerned because her competitor we saw they were getting booked over and over and over again. But here's the deal. We were doing a review and audit. Their photos were so misleading. They took out all of the other homes in the neighborhood, took out all the power lines, and this is in Joshua Tree. So they were making it seem like you had the whole land to yourself. Well, he might be getting the bookings, but we then went to the reviews, and you better believe that review after review after review mentioned it. And now we went back and audited again, and he is now sitting at a 4.67 review status, okay? That is now going to impact his listing forever.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, we even had one of our strategists inside of our coaching program. Her client said, "Hey, I was playing around with AI, and I really want you to use this photo for the listing." And she's like, "Okay, send it over. I'll look at it." And she looks at it, and it is like a brighter, more vibrant shot of their back patio, which has this like great outdoor kitchen and a pool or whatever. But she's like, "Except it doesn't actually have an outdoor kitchen." She was like, "Hey, client, I can't use this. We don't have an outdoor kitchen." Yeah, so a 4.67 is not a minor inconvenience. That is the threshold where Airbnb suppresses your listing in search. And that is not just something that Thanks for Visiting is just saying. Like, we get to work with an Airbnb marketing lead who works for Airbnb, and he tells us this. Like, this is very important to our business. So, and because we have so many listings, we get to work with Airbnb directly. So this is real. He traded a better looking photo for long-term damage to his ranking and his income.
And it goes beyond removing the house from a frame. We see hosts adding fake snow for a cozy winter aesthetic, manipulating fall leaves, creating a version of the property that does not exist. The sunset skies that were never there and will never be there. The guest books the dream and they arrive at the reality, and that gap destroys trust immediately. And not only in your home, but then in our entire industry.
Right. I know clients who would plan for fall leave photos, like get the photographer out there, and hey, if it's like too sunny that day, or we'll have to reschedule the photographer. But until AI gets like ridiculously realistic, I want you to proceed with caution.
It's not worth it.
It's not there yet, yeah. Because here's what that moment costs you. The guest stops being a guest and they become an auditor. Every small thing that would have been forgiven, a scuff on the wall, a slow drain, maybe a squeaky door, now becomes evidence. They're not asking, is this a nice place? They're asking, what else is not what it seemed when I booked it?
And the damage isn't only in the review. There's a second layer most hosts don't see. A guest that feels that disconnect between your photos and reality, they are going to bounce off your listing. Airbnb reads that as a signal that something is wrong, and then that pulls you down in the search. You lose visibility before you even lose the review.
So just show the property as it is. I mean, put your best foot forward, like that's fine, but show the property as it is.
And if you're watching this and realizing that your listing has some opportunity, has some of those gaps, this is exactly where we start with every host inside our strategic host program. We audit your listing. We're gonna look at all the photos, your pricing, and your guest experience end to end. The link is in the description to apply and see if it's a fit. Mistake number 3, skimping on amenities and inventory. Here's the deal. You're not just competing with the other Airbnbs, you're also competing with the other hotels in your area. And one of the main reasons a guest picks you over the Hilton is the one thing a hotel can't give them in the space. It's a kitchen, the feeling of being somewhere instead of just staying somewhere. When you don't stock your property to support that experience, you have removed the only advantage you have over hotels. and other short-term rentals that aren't stocked appropriately.
Yeah, because one of the most common versions of this are hosts who stock up for the minimum too, okay? So if they sleep 6 and then you have 6 plates, 6 cups, and 6 sets of silverware, that might sound logical, but it is wrong.
A group of 6 people, they're cooking breakfast, they're making coffee, snacking, doing dishes, and cooking dinner all day if you're at that minimum. By mid-afternoon, every dish is dirty. Now someone has to stop their vacation, stop what they're doing, wash dishes, do a load in the dishwasher, and then get back to it. You've just taken them from their vacation and put them back in their personal home. That is the opposite of what they've paid for.
The rule for us is 3 times your head count across all inventory. So if you're sleeping 6, that means you need 18 cups, 18 plates, 18 sets of silverware. It means a full set of cookware, not a pan and a pot, so a guest can cook a complete meal without improvising around what is missing. The same logic applies to towels, linens, seating areas. That is Annette's pet peeve. Mm-hmm. When we are booking for like a team retreat or whatever, and we're on the listing, and it's like, well, you are boasting how you have 8 million beds, you sleep 12 people.
We just stayed at a place that slept 16. There were only 4 of us, and 2 of us were sitting on the floor because the couches weren't, it wasn't a space where everybody could, space out.
These hosts want their cake and eat it too, but it's like, you're going to brag about all those beds and all those heads that you can sleep.
Where are we sitting?
Where are we hanging out as a crew, right? So the same logic applies to everything. So we want you to make sure that you have stock so that no guest ever has to improvise.
And a TFV pro tip here, we recommend Host GPO for sourcing everything your property needs at a major discount, specifically for hosts, okay? They have a kitchen box. You tell them, it's like magic. You tell them how many guests your property sleeps, and they send you exactly what you need to hit those levels. And they're designer brands, they're always stocked, and without the guesswork for you. And it's all in one delivery from one spot.
Yeah, just think about like going on Amazon or something and having to like piecemeal whole
First
kitchen set.
First it's the plates, then it's the bowls, then it's the cups, then it's the
Yeah, Host GPO is where it's at. I love them. So every moment a guest has to work around something that's not there is a moment they're aware they're in someone else's space, and your job is to make them forget that. And honestly, if they're annoyed by this, it's like, what else will they then be annoyed by? And is that annoyance going to end up in your review? Ooh, pay attention to this one. Mistake number 4. Unclear check-in instructions. When a guest messages you at 11 p.m. saying they can't get the door open, most hosts have that same first thought. How do they not read the instructions? And that reaction is the mistake. It's not a guest problem. It's a communication gap that you, the host, you own it. You just can't see it because you've opened that door 100 times.
Mm-hmm. And this is the most nerve-wracking part for the guests because they know once they open that door, it's going to reveal if they're getting what they saw in the pictures. And if they can't get in ahead of time, you're already increasing that anxiety. So here's the test that we use with every client because this is such a critical moment in every guest day. Imagine someone who has never seen your property. They may have never even been to your town. They're arriving in the dark. Maybe they've been driving for 6 hours. Maybe they were flying. Maybe their flight got delayed. They have kids in the car. Again, somewhere they've never been, and they're encountering a smart lock that they have never, ever used. Can they get inside without messaging you? If the answer isn't a confident yes, your instructions are the problem, not the guest.
And here's the deal, the fix is in the photos, not words, okay? Not in the copy that you provide to the guest. Every single step of the arrival, photographed from the guest's point of view. That is the key. The street approach, the driveway, the entry lighting, where the lockbox is or the smart lock, right? How the keypad sits. Do you have to touch a button on the keypad to wake it up? Which way the door swings? If a step has a quirk, the door needs a firm push, the code needs a pound sign first. Photograph and then caption it.
Mm-hmm. We build out our check-in guidebooks directly inside our property management software, and most softwares have the tools to build out extremely detailed step-by-step arrival guides that go out automatically with every single booking. So there's no manual sending, no missed guests, and these instructions, they are there before they need them and when they need them.
And here's a little TFE pro tip. I want you to include those Wi-Fi details in that same message. The network name and the password written exactly as they appear. Not saying it's on the fridge, because a guest who's still stressed from the drive doesn't want to hunt for the password before they can decompress.
Because here is what's at stake during this moment. The arrival isn't just their first experience. It is the emotional baseline for the rest of the stay and how it gets measured. A confused, frustrated arrival, it's priming the guest to notice every small thing for the rest of their stay. However, a smooth arrival builds trust. Before they put their bags down, it buys you grace for anything that could slightly go wrong later. Mistake number 5, over or under communicating during the stay. Most hosts think that great hospitality means being attentive, checking in, asking how things are going, making sure the guest feels very looked after. This instinct is good, but it's exactly why your reviews could be stuck.
Yeah, here's what attentive looks like from the guest side. Every message you send puts their phone back in their hand when they were trying to be somewhere else, right? On vacation or not with their phone in their hand. It reminds them this isn't their home, that there's a host on the other end. And in 2026, guests are already carrying some version of that awareness, right? The stories about hidden cameras, hosts who cancel last minute, hosts who show up uninvited. Even a guest with no reason to be suspicious is a little on guard. So every extra superfluous message activates that feeling.
Which leads us to a principle we teach every one of our clients. You are not the main character of someone else's stay, nor is your property. Your guests didn't book to have a relationship with you. They booked to be somewhere. The job is to make everything work so well, they didn't even need to hear from you.
Yeah, our guest messaging cadence is one of the brand standards we build with every host inside of Strategic Host because it just works. And the baseline is 3 touches: a pre-arrival message with everything they need to get in and settle, a check-in confirmation once they're inside. For stays longer than 1 night, a brief note the next morning, no expectation of a reply, and that's it. If they engage back warmly, helpfully, briefly, but if they don't, just leave them alone.
And here's one thing to note here. If you are going to ask how their stay is going, be prepared and ready to act immediately on that answer. We see hosts who invite that feedback, a guest responds with a small request, and then the host debates it or pushes back on it. The moment you open that door, you have to walk through it. You have to follow through. A guest who asks for something and gets a runaround doesn't forget it. That memory will show up in the review.
Yeah, so the way we phrase this, so when we check in on them after arrival, for most of our properties, and it just depends, and we learn who the guest avatar is when we set up the cadence, but it's usually the morning after and not too early. We don't want the ping of their phone, just in case they let their phone on, wake them up. And I'm not reading this verbatim, but essentially it's, hey, how did everything go? Is there something you can't get to work right? Is there something that is not meeting your expectations? Please let us know. We want to make it right and earn that 5-star review. If everything is fine, no need to respond. Just enjoy the rest of your stay.
Yeah.
That way they don't feel compelled to respond to you. No, everything's great, and pat you on the back. It's like, actually, no, if you're reading this, great. If there's something you want to say, fine. Right, but you don't have to respond if everything's, and if you don't want to, if the guest doesn't want to respond back, they don't have to. Okay, mistake number 6, focusing on the intent instead of the impact when problems arise. Either way.
Guest arrival, problems arise.
Yeah. Just like life, things go wrong in short-term rentals, all right? Appliances fail, power goes out, a Wi-Fi provider has an outage. These are not always preventable. As hard as, believe me, I've tried. I try to control the entire thing. I have backups, but things happen. And guests who are reasonable, they understand that. What they don't forgive is feeling like their experience didn't matter to you.
We're going to share a situation that just came across to us with a host in a host community recently. The host had a group, it was a luxury property, around 20 guests staying, and the Wi-Fi went down during their stay. Oh man, feel for them. And no Wi-Fi means no streaming, no smart TVs, no computers, no iPads. I mean, they can use,
hotspot or whatever,
but not that long. Nothing for a group of 20 people. And the host obviously hopped to it, contacted her provider. She did, what she could do within her control. But here's what went wrong. Her question to the guest was, to the group was, do I owe them anything beyond what I already did?
And the comments on this thread to this host asking this question were full of people coaching her on how to get the review removed if it came in negatively. Like if this group of 20 people left them her negative review. because the Wi-Fi went out and she was wondering, like, do I owe them anything other than trying to contact
I'm not responsible for that.
Right. And that entire conversation missed the point.
You know, because the Wi-Fi was down for the entire stay, her intention was there, but the impact on those guests was not changed by her effort. And in hospitality, impact is the only thing that counts.
Yeah, every major hospitality brand in the world has their own framework for this exact moment, all right? Their own language, their own protocol for when something goes wrong during the guest stay. The specifics differ, but the principle is the same across all of them. You acknowledge what happened, and you ask the guest what would make it right. And you act on the answer. You don't defend, you don't explain, you acknowledge, ask, act. In fact, steal that as your own brand standard for these moments. Acknowledge, ask, and then act on it.
The most common version of this mistake sounds like a host defending their effort instead of the first thing of acknowledging the guest experience. We contacted the provider. We did everything we could. It was out of our control. Those are all true, and none of them change what the 20 guests experienced.
Yeah, the language that protects you in these moments is simple. I am so sorry this happened during your stay. This is not the experience we want for our guests. What would make this right for you? That question changes the entire dynamic. You are no longer defending, you are now solving. And a guest who feels like you are genuinely trying to make it right is a very different reviewer than one who feels dismissed.
And sometimes their answer, it might be a partial refund. Maybe it's a complimentary late checkout. Sometimes a guest just wants to be heard and will tell you so. You can't know until you ask. Very straightforward. Deciding for the guest what makes it right without asking is almost always wrong.
Yeah, so intent does not override impact. If it was not fixed, it was not made right. That is the standard. Think about, like, the standard is you have Wi-Fi. That is ground level, okay? When Wi-Fi doesn't exist, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. Their stay has now gone below, ground zero. And so you have to, the Wi-Fi coming back just gets you back to ground zero, right? And we've got to, the reason why you're hosting, especially this host who was boasting a luxury property, was to be above the standard. And so when you don't have Wi-Fi, how do you get there? That's our job as hosts. That is the challenge, and you should be excited to rise to it. All right, there you have it. 6 mistakes. None of them require a better property. All of them, though, require a more intentional operation.
Be honest in your listing so the right guest books and the wrong guest doesn't. Use photos that show the reality. Stock your property so no guest ever has to work around what's missing. Make check-in impossible to get wrong. And stay out of your guest experience unless they need you. And when something goes wrong, lead with acknowledgement, not defense.
The listings that win long-term are the most consistent. They're the ones where every guest arrives knowing exactly what they're getting and leaves feeling like the host thought of everything. Inside our coaching program, Strategic Host, we help hosts get more nights booked, charge what their property is actually worth, and stop leaving money on the table. The link in the description for you to apply. And with that, I am Sarah Karakayan.
I'm Annette Grant, and together we are...
Thanks for visiting.